Welcome to Unlocking Moves, where we're going to cover the key decision points and pivotal moments that really change the trajectory of successful entrepreneurs and leaders. And I want to hear their real life stories, not just the glory stories, but also the gory stories. Because as I like to say, the bigger the shit show, the bigger the lesson. Speaking of unlocking entrepreneurs, my guest today has done that his entire career, and I can't wait to dig in with Adam Witty. But before we get too deep, Adam, I like to kick off each show with a little question out of left field, something to throw you off guard to get our audience thinking, okay? So you ready to do that?
Here we go, buddy.
All right, here we go. So I must tell you that we share a mutual friend, Clint Greenleaf, and I asked him for some scoop on Adam. Does that scare you?
It does, because it's Clint.
I will tell you this, Clint wouldn't give me any information, so I had to go digging on my own. And I'll tell you, you're very hard to find information out about on social media. You have a pretty incognito presence. But I will tell you, there's a lot of people out there who are witty and have friends named Adam.
Very true.
So here's my question. In college, you started your own ticket brokerage business called Ticket Advantage. And we're going to get into that a little bit later in the show, but I have a question for you about it. I had my own publishing business in college myself, and I realized there's perks to come with things like that. So for you, I want to ask you, what kind of perks did you get? Things like access to tickets, maybe trade or barter with restaurants and bars, or maybe, how should I say, access to girls?
All of the above is correct, but I will probably say the biggest access that this business got me when I was in college was it got me a sit-down dinner with Cal Ripken. And the story is we were promoting our ticket business, and we were doing these in-person experiential marketing events. And we were doing it at baseball stadiums at the time because, baseball, you've got 82 home games, and most season ticket holders for a baseball team, they're selling some of those tickets. And the president of Cal's company saw what we were doing, and he's like, this is super cool, and we would love to be involved in it. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, how about if we involve you in it, but we'd love for Cal to be a spokesperson for us. And so we actually ended up doing a sponsorship deal where Cal Ripken became the spokesperson for Ticket Advantage for a period of time. And I was also able to make a part of that deal an in-person meeting, and we actually ended up having dinner together, which was super cool.
Oh man, that is such a great story. I can't wait to dive into more of those stories with you. As you've heard so far, my guest today is Adam Witty, who is the founder and CEO of Advantage Media. He's also the CEO of Forbes Books, which is the publishing arm of Forbes Media. And he's also author of the recently published and best-selling book, The Authority Advantage, as well as 5 other books. Adam Witty, welcome to Unlocking Moves.
Kurt, so great to be here.
If you're just joining us on Unlocking Moves, today's episode is brought to you as usual by Hire Better, the strategic talent partner for growth-minded entrepreneurs everywhere. All right, Adam, your story is fascinating. You come from an entrepreneurial background. Your father sounds like he was an entrepreneur. It sounds like you haven't held a steady job other than maybe a couple of internships or summer jobs along the way. So you've worked for yourself since probably high school. Tell me about some of your early days as an entrepreneur with this Ticket Advantage. I'm sure was the first one, and maybe some lessons learned along the way, because as I understand, that one didn't make it all the way.
Yeah, that one didn't make it all the way. So the biggest lesson that I learned, it was an internet-based company, and it was a marketplace where you could buy and sell sports tickets online. Now, I understood sports, I understood tickets, but I was not a coder, I was not a programmer, and I was always dependent upon other people to do things to make the business work, which if you're a multi-million-dollar company with lots of employees, I guess that's okay. But when it's just literally you in a dorm room, maybe with a friend that's helping on the side, when you can't do anything yourself, that is a major problem. And so, Warren Buffett, I think, made the statement, I don't invest in businesses that I don't fundamentally understand. I would take that piece of advice and just tweak it, that I will not ever again start a business where I can't do everything that's necessary, at least in the initial stages. Because I was always dependent on other people. I was always waiting on other people. Of course, I had to pay them somehow and really didn't have much money. That was a lesson learned that I would not repeat that mistake.
I appreciate the lessons learned. When we talk about my book here later, we could talk about Techno Tim and the really know-it-all tech guy you had to rely on early in your career. So I know there's some things that'll resonate with you for that. My business in college was the Greek directory, which was buying and selling or selling ads into a phone book, but it was printed. I was well before you. We didn't have the internet when I was in college, so I had to lay out all the ads and I had to check all the phone numbers and all that good stuff. But that's a little more labor intensive and maybe less of a home run that you had on your hands. It sounds like you started around the same time as StubHub or Ticketmaster.
Yeah, really good memory there, going back to the archive. So we literally started at the exact same time as StubHub. And the only difference was I was a lowly undergraduate at Clemson. StubHub was a bunch of Stanford MBAs. They raised about $30 million in VC money. And of course, they scaled and sold to, I think it was Ticketmaster. And of course, they had a great outcome. I had a more humbling outcome where I raised about $25,000 from friends, family, and fools. Now, I made a business out of it. I mean, I think we grew our top line to maybe $250,000 in annual sales. I learned a lot. I met some really cool people, but probably learned as much of what not to do as to what to do. And, I guess they call it the School of Hard Knocks for a reason. It was an invaluable experience.
Well, I can tell you most entrepreneurs have a long list of what not to do from their history. So you're not alone. And man, I can't wait to dig into some of those warts. I know you then took that and maybe leverage those experiences for the Advantage Media, which I got to tell you, a college grad starts a publishing business for entrepreneurs. WTF, man. Tell me the story there.
Crazy. So I had spent 2 summers when I was in high school working for a publishing company. And I didn't have any dream or desire of being in the publishing industry. But my parents said, son, you've got to get a job. And I had no idea what I was going to do. And it just so happened that our neighbor worked as an executive in a publishing company. And he overheard this discussion and he said, Adam, why don't you come be an intern at our company? We'll put you in the marketing department, help us sell some books, and we'll pay you. And I grew up in Central Florida, and in the summer, it's really hot. And so if I'm bagging groceries or if I'm working in a warehouse, well, the idea of sitting in an office in air conditioning, getting paid pretty well, sounded actually like a great deal. So I go to work for this publishing company. I think I'll hate it. I actually end up finding it interesting, right? They sent me everywhere. I was in marketing, I was in sales, I was in design, I was in editorial. They sent me to the warehouse. I spent 3 days packing and shipping boxes of books. So I saw it all. And at the end of that summer, I was like, this is actually pretty cool. And I built a great relationship with my boss, who was the head of sales. And he said, hey, why don't you come back next summer? But next summer, we do 2 big trade shows a year, which both happen to be in the summer. They were spending a couple $100,000 at each event, with a booth and entertainment and sales reps. And he said, I want you to manage both of these events for us. And what sold me was that one of the events was in New Orleans and one of the events was in Las Vegas. And so it was an all expenses paid trip for a week to both of those places. And so I said, all right, I'm in. And I went back for a second summer and learned even more. And then I went off to college. And I really, Kurt, didn't think twice. I never thought I'm going to go into the publishing industry. So I'm in Central Florida as a kid. you can't see because I'm sitting down, but I'm 6'6". So what does that usually mean? It means I played basketball. Now, I'm also white, which means that I sucked. And so I was a poor basketball player, but I loved to play the game. We were huge Orlando Magic fans. So I write a letter to the founder of the Orlando Magic basketball team who had written a book about starting the team from scratch. I read the book. I loved it. I wrote him a letter, handwritten letter. He writes me back. And I had asked him in the letter if I could take him out to lunch. And he said yes. So literally, I'm like 16 years old. My mom is driving me to a lunch meeting with a guy named Pat Williams, who's the founder of the Orlando Magic. And he and I develop a friendship. We develop a mentorship, mentee-mentor relationship. And he knew about my experience as a summer intern in this publishing company. And he had written a number of books himself. He was a very successful business executive. Writing these business books, kind of made him into like a celebrity, right? He was on Good Morning America. He was on the Today Show. He was being asked to speak all around the world and, talk about his books. So he's doing this. He knows about my 2 summers working as an intern at this publishing company. And he knows that I have an entrepreneurial itch and I want to do something on my own. So he, of course, was encouraging of me to start Ticket Advantage. And he was on my board when I had started Ticket Advantage because, of course, it's a marketplace to buy and sell sports tickets. He's the founder of an NBA basketball team. It makes perfect sense. Well, you already let the cat out of the bag. Ticket Advantage, not a success. So I'm back in Orlando. I had graduated from Clemson, and Pat Williams and I are having lunch. And literally midway through lunch, he just kind of looks up and he says, Adam, you need to start a publishing company for CEOs. He said, every CEO is an expert. And when they write the book on the topic, they're the person that everybody wants to go to. He said, you can be the Sherpa that helps CEOs create books. And Kurt, I kid you not, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I just knew I wanted to try to do something on my own. I didn't want to work for somebody else. I probably wouldn't be very good of an employee. And so I was kind of desperate. And I'm like, okay, let's give it a try. And literally that was the motivation that prompted me to found Advantage Media on July 19th of 2005.
Man, what a great story. And I know we're skipping ahead, but I'm sure a big part of that is your unlocking move. The fact that you had the courage to reach out to Pat Williams, write him a personal letter. He took it upon himself to write back and to begin that relationship. Man, how powerful and what I hope inspiration to our audience to do those types of things for themselves and not just hope something good happens to them, but take the step to make good things happen for them.
Yeah, I'm a big letter writer. And what I've learned is that when you write big name people letters, like they don't get as much mail as you think they do. And it really makes a positive impression on them. And I've gotten more replies from really big name people that I never thought would ever respond to me.
The lost art of letter writing, and now we can use it to help our careers too. That's awesome, man. This is so fun, Adam. Hey, so I want to shift gears a bit, and I want to talk about your book, your recently published book and best-selling book, The Authority Advantage. I know you co-wrote it with our mutual friend, Rusty Shelton. What I like about the book is that the book positions you, the author, or me, the author, as the thought leader and really the person our customers want to connect with, and you bring some personal connection to it as opposed to connecting with our brand, Advantage Media, Hire Better, what have you. Also love how you guys provide an actionable blueprint. Those are great attributes of the book. Tell me a little bit about the book in your words.
Yeah, so the big idea is this. People don't like to be sold, but they sure do like to buy. And people love to buy with content, with education, with information. And so if you as the CEO can think of yourself not as a CEO and not as a salesperson, but instead as a teacher, right? I'm going to take everything that I know being an executive search for so many years, and I'm going to share everything that I've learned with my target customer in the form of my book. That is a powerful concept that has incredible impact and results with your target audience. And so, it's funny, Kurt, I'm going to use you as an example. Look what book is sitting on my desk. Oh my goodness.
Product placement, let's go.
Right? And of course, you're not trying to overtly sell me something. You're trying to teach me what you've learned. And if I'm in the market to hire an executive or to do an executive search process, once I read your book, more often than not, I'm going to be like, we should call Kurt. We should call Hire Better. Like, let's talk to them first. Now, does it guarantee that I'm going to become your customer? No. But is it going to create a phone call that maybe otherwise wouldn't have happened? You better bet yourself. And that's really what it's all about, is instead of being an operator trying to sell something, think of yourself as a thought leader with the job of teaching. That's really what the authority advantage is all about.
I love the concept. It's very real. It happens every day. I view myself as a coach, and so it falls right in line with what you're talking about. And so I love it. I love the book. Go get it. The Authority Advantage, Rusty Shelton and Adam Witty.
And as a publisher, you got to have your own book, right? I see yours in your background. Here's mine. And for all the CEOs that we support, one of the things that we say is, look, your book is an encapsulation of your life's work. And if you want to make a bigger impact on the world, you need to get that book in front of more people.
I got to tell you this, and I told my producer earlier on the show that I do have a copy of The Authority Advantage. I have read a substantial portion of it. I got it when Rusty Shelton had his book launch, his half of the book launch in Austin a few months ago. And I left it at home today like a dumbass. So there you go. And I will tell you this, there were a lot of people giving Rusty attention that night, getting autographs of the book and whatnot. And his family was there. I forget, three kids and at least one young daughter. I think her name was Grace. I could be wrong on
Sadie.
that. What is it?
Sadie.
Yeah, that's right. Sadie. So, and the older brothers and sisters were getting a little bit of attention, and you could tell she was wanting to join in. So I asked her to sign my copy of your book. So I might be the only person in America or the world that has a Sadie Shelton signed copy of The Authority Advantage.
Which is very valuable.
Absolutely. And made her feel so special. It was so cool. So I want to shift gears again. As you said, I've written my own book, Who's Your Mike? A No Bullshit Guide to the People You'll Meet on Your Entrepreneurial Journey. It's a little bit different of a business book. It's not a book about hiring. So don't anybody get that idea. It's really about the entrepreneurs that maybe you've outgrown, or the failures that you've hired, maybe the strong people that you've hired. It's more of a talent planning type of book, almost, if you will. Lots of stories. As I said in my intro, I like to hear stories of entrepreneurs because I think other entrepreneurs can learn from you. So I wanted to know from you, I know you've read a substantial portion of the book yourself. What is one of your favorite characters from the book? Maybe Mike, the bookkeeper turned CFO you've outgrown. Maybe Harry the hustler, the salesperson who's a shitty sales manager. Maybe Pipeline Paul.
Yeah, so Harry the hustler. And this doesn't speak well of me, Kurt, but I have made the mistake not once, but twice. And I told myself a compelling story that the second time it would be different. And here's all the reasons why it would be different. And guess what? It was the same crappy outcome the second time as it was the first time. As tempting as it is to take your top salesperson and say, you know what? They're the best. They need to be the sales manager because they can teach every other rep what they know and how they do it. Disaster.
Well, I've got a great example in the book about a client who had one of the partners was basically Harry the hustler. And he wanted to have the title and the prestige of being the chief revenue officer, we were calling him. He sucks at management, sucks at holding people accountable, sucks at all the stuff that's required of a sales leader. And we basically talked him out of it. Like, dude, you need to be, I forget what name I gave him in the book because I've anonymized all my stories. So I'll be careful here. We said, we need you to go be the hunter and go play golf with the big wigs in your industry and go, pontificate with all those folks, write your book, whatever, get with Adam. And then let's bring in a sales manager to do all the other administrative and managerial stuff that you suck at and hate anyway. It was a beautiful outcome. It was a hard discussion. It took us probably 6 months to get him to that point. But that's part of the process, is you've got to figure out how we can put Harry in the best possible position to add value to your company, and let's go find the right sales leader, sales manager for the team. So I know you've been doing this for 17 years or so, plus your 4 years at Ticket Advantage. You got to have a character for me. What cool character can you add to the mix? Maybe personal problem Polly, or pain in the ass PETA, or whatever. What stories you got for me? Any good characters?
What I've seen is that companies outgrow people, right? And a lot of those people that they outgrow are completely blind to their deficiencies. And they think they are the greatest thing since sliced bread. And they do not see at all any of their weaknesses. And, to me, it's one thing to say, hey, I know I suck at this, so let's create a plan in which I can still do my job and have somebody else help me with what I suck at. But these people, especially, and it's so true with the ones that have been with you the longest, they just don't see it whatsoever. They are just so blind to their deficiencies, their weaknesses. And it gets to a point where it's so limiting that really the only choice that you have is, you've got to ask them to leave. And because they're blind, they won't even admit that there's something that maybe they're not so good at, or maybe they could do better. And so you can't even have a productive conversation. I've experienced that now multiple times over the last 17 years. And it seems like it's a pattern that repeats itself. And so I don't necessarily have a kitschy name for it, like you do for all of your people. But I don't know, maybe it's like, self-denial Sarah, right? I mean, she just does not see any of her weaknesses. But man, I've encountered that a number of times.
I love it. Self-deny Sarah, maybe blind spot Barry, something like that. We'll put that in the comments. One thing that you mentioned earlier that it's relevant to what you just described too is oftentimes we have our deficiencies as entrepreneurs. In fact, the epilogue of the book is called "When You're the Problem," and it's going to be the next book in the series. So if Forbes Books wants a piece of that, you better pony up pretty quick. But really, we're part of the problem. And many of us suck at hiring. We also suck at those challenging conversations that you described earlier, where you tell Harry the hustler that he's not your sales leader, that let's put him in the right position. And so don't anybody out there, don't feel like you're the only person that struggles with that. We all do, as Adam and I just both admitted.
Oh yeah. Listen, if you want to talk about my deficiencies, we're going to need more than what's allocated for this podcast.
Awesome. Well, there you go. That's what the purpose of this is. We're going to maybe get into some of those deficiencies. Well, maybe not. Right now, I want to talk about the positives. Let's talk about unlocking moves. So the title of the show is Unlocking Moves. It's where we want to hit on the key pivotal moments or decision points that changed the trajectory of your career. I want to inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs and leaders to help find their own opportunities and seize those opportunities, as we said before, with your letter to Cal Ripken or to Pat Williams. Tell me what your unlocking move may have been, Adam.
Well, there's been actually multiple, but I'll choose one to start with. So, of course, I'm the CEO of Forbes Books. As you mentioned, we are the book publishing brand of Forbes Media, which is the publisher of Forbes magazine. It's one of the biggest business media brands in the world. And prior to I and my team, Forbes Books didn't exist. So I, through luck, get connected to an executive at Forbes. And I say to this executive, I said, you guys are the biggest business magazine in the world. Like, why don't you publish business books, right? I mean, seems like they would go hand in hand. And she laughed really loud, which was like, uh-oh, that's not good. She says, Adam, making money selling magazines is hard enough. Why in the world are we now going to try to make money selling books? And she's right. Selling books is not an easy business. It is a hard way to make money. And so I said, well, our business model is a bit unique and a bit different. And our clients are CEOs. And those CEOs are investing in building an entire thought leadership marketing program. And the book is a piece of that. And these are hustlers. And with our model, we make money regardless of how many books are sold. And she said, oh, well, that's interesting. And I said, look, my thesis is our business model plus your brand, 1 + 1 could equal 5. And so there's two insights for unlocking moves. The first is, what are those 1 + 1 = 5 opportunities in your business, in your industry, right? And so I quickly identified that our model, with a brand name that everybody knew, liked, trusted, and respected, that was a 1 + 1 could equal 5, right? The other move was that it was easy to get this executive to say, oh, that's pretty interesting. But to go from that to a partnership, well, first of all, it probably took a year and a half. And it required more persistence, more stick-to-itness, more kind of just bulldogged determination of, I am going to make this happen. With a lot of times where I was like, I don't know. And that would be the other unlocking move, that it's not brilliance, it's just determinedness. And it's stick-to-itness, and it's persistence. And man, I think that both of those things are, for me, that was the magic in unlocking this move. But for an entrepreneur to be successful, I think those are two pretty crucial ingredients.
Man, I want to bottle that up, Adam. First of all, spot in the opportunity, having the guts to reach out to the executive at Forbes. And then I can only imagine the determination and persistence it required to get further along the chain with Forbes. That persistence and grit is a huge part of being a successful entrepreneur. So kudos to you. And I hope some people, and I know some people got some inspiration today. Well, Adam, I want to switch gears a bit, and I consider myself the listener's advocate. If I've got Adam Witty here, a one-on-one conversation over a beer or whatever, what would I want to know from Adam? Here's the one I came up with. You've been doing this for 17 years or so. You've been doing Forbes books here for about 7 years or so. I want to have you give me some inside baseball on how I get published in Forbes books, and how much money you're willing to offer me for Who's Your Kurt.
Well, here's the inside baseball. The inside baseball is that making money selling books is almost impossible.
Dude, I've made like $12 from my best-selling book. Surely there's a
You've taken your family out for a really nice meal at Ruby Tuesday, right? With all the royalty checks that you've cashed. So I wrote a book, Kurt, many years ago. It's called Book the Business: How to Make Big Money with Your Book Without Ever Selling a Single Copy. And the book, which actually did pretty well, was to make the point that, hey, it's all about thought leadership. It's all about making an impact, taking your life's work, what you know, sharing it with others. And the more people that you help, the more that benefit's going to come back to you and your business. And so that is kind of the aha and the inside baseball, I think, for most business leaders, is that, hey, this isn't about selling books. This isn't about becoming J.K. Rowling. This isn't about cashing royalty checks. This is about building your authority. This is about making an impact. This is about taking your life's work and channeling that into something that can be taught to other people.
I love it. That's great stuff. And that's exactly what I found with Who's Your Mic. Is I've given away a lot of copies, gotten some great feedback. And honestly, the feedback alone, just the stories and the ahas and the people telling me, hey, you must have, is this book about my business? Because, it just resonates. So I love that. And I think that's absolutely true. So I've got one trick question for you. I told you leading up, I was going to give you a trick question that I wasn't going to tell you about. So I want to dig a little deeper. I would love for you to share with me one question that you're never asked, and frankly, you're very happy that they don't, or maybe you kind of wish they would ask.
I don't know that I've ever been asked this question, but it's actually an easy one for me to answer. So this is one that I wish people would ask me. And that is, what is the greatest piece of advice that you've ever received? And I'm going to cheat. I'm going to tell you two. The first greatest piece of advice I ever received was a guy named Jack Daly, who you probably know, Kurt. He's well known in the YPO family, in the EO family. And Jack said, Adam, your job is not to grow sales. Your job is to grow sales people that grow sales. Because like a lot of entrepreneurs, I mean, I was the first salesman. And like a lot of entrepreneurs, I'm probably one of the strongest salesmen in our company. And, you know, that's kind of an advantage that any founder has. And so I thought, hey, my job is to bring in the bacon. But after spending time with Jack and learning that advice, it's like, no, dummy. If you're going to scale a business, you can't be the one doing it all. You've got to instead use your time to grow other people that can then grow the business. That's how you scale. So the second great piece of advice that I received was from a mentor, a guy by the name of Alan Mulally. And Alan is pretty well known. He was the CEO of Boeing Commercial Airplanes, and he was the CEO of Ford Motor Company. And he was the guy that saved Ford during the Great Recession, when all the other automakers were declaring bankruptcy. And Alan Mulally said, Adam, your job as a CEO is to be a facilitator. Your job isn't to do the work. Your job is simply to facilitate the people on your team working together. And, you know, at first I was like, no, I've got to be the strategy guy. I've got to be the rainmaker, maybe not selling, but like I've got to open up all the doors, and I've got to be the guy that leads the planning that we do every quarter. And I've got to be the guy that runs the meetings. And I was wrong. And he was right. Really, if you want to create a company and scale that company, the job of the CEO is to facilitate and ultimately to find really great people that can do all of those things and simply make connections, open doors, give advice, sand any rough spots that sometimes come, but it's really just facilitating. And so those were the two great lessons that I learned. And I wish people would ask the question more often, what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
I love it. Both very sage pieces of advice, and both allow you to scale your business and not be mired in it. We've all heard the phrase work on the business, not in the business. And many entrepreneurs get bogged down with trying to deliver results themselves. And that's what holds them back for sure. I learned that from my entrepreneurial father, who was insisted on doing everything himself. And of course, he didn't scale. So, man, thank you for that. So, Adam, how can we connect with you or learn more about Adam Witty or Forbes Books or Advantage Media?
You can learn more about me online at adamwitty.com, WITTY, adamwitty.com. And our company is at books.forbes.com, books.forbes.com. And then The Authority Advantage, Amazon, it's on Audible. It's an ebook, it's a print book, whatever format you like to consume content in, we got it covered.
Love it. The Authority Advantage on Amazon. Did you record the Audible yourself?
I did. Rusty and I did together.
Very nice. I did that for mine for the first time, and it was hard as hell. So mad respect for people who do that, especially if you did it with a partner. That sounds even more challenging.
Yeah, it is.
And you're still partners? You didn't get in fights about stumbling over words or having to do retakes or anything like that?
Well, I don't want to say there were no, I'm just teasing. Fortunately, we were able to make it through the audiobook recording.
Awesome. Well, hey, on that note, we're going to wrap this puppy up. I'm going to invite all of our viewers and listeners to go like and subscribe on YouTube and give us a 5-star review or subscribe wherever you consume your podcast, Apple, Spotify. And those 5-star reviews really help us keep our momentum going. So thank you for that. And Adam, thank you so much for joining me on Unlocking Moves. I love what you're doing for entrepreneurs everywhere. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, Kurt.
If you're an entrepreneur and you think you might have outgrown a member of your team, or maybe you've got a mic, as we talked about in Who's Your Mic, check out this quiz at who'syourmic.com/quiz. That's who'syourmic.com/quiz.